His mornings felt heavy, not painful, not dramatic, just heavy, like carrying something invisible that never quite left his chest. The coffee didn't taste the same. His shoulders slumped more. His eyes had that tired, distant look of a man who'd stopped feeling excited long ago. And yet, there was no obvious illness, no diagnosis. No one could explain why he seemed dimmer each week, like a lamp slowly fading. His name was Walter. 71, retired postman, lived alone in a quiet Michigan suburb. Clean house, fixed routines, polite conversations. On paper, everything looked fine. But deep down, something was quietly unraveling. Not with loud symptoms, but in whispers. His mood, his memory, even his motivation to do the simplest things. And the strangest part? It all seemed to start when he stopped one very specific habit. For years, Walter believed he was doing the right thing. He'd read articles that warned older men to conserve their energy, hold back pleasure, and avoid wasting themselves. So he did. No intimacy, not even with himself. At first, it made him feel proud, like he was practicing discipline. But months turned into years, and his body began to rebel in silence. Numbness, tension, nighttime restlessness. The fire he once carried had turned cold. Walter's story isn't unique. Across the country, thousands of men over 60 are making quiet mistakes that no one talks about, habits around self-pleasure that were never taught properly, or worse, wrapped in shame, guilt, or outdated myths. Mistakes that don't scream with immediate pain, but instead whisper through loss of sensitivity, energy, and emotional connection. This video isn't about shame. It's about understanding. Because aging doesn't mean silence. And pleasure, connection, and vitality aren't luxuries for the young. They're lifelines for the wise. What if the habits you thought were harmless were actually stealing from you little by little? In the next chapters, we'll walk through the most common masturbation mistakes men over 60 make. Not to judge, but to reveal. You might be shocked at how small changes can reignite sensitivity, improve circulation, and even restore a sense of emotional calm you didn't realize you'd lost. So stay with us, because what you do in the privacy of your own time, or what you avoid doing, may be shaping your health in ways you never imagined, and it's never too late to reclaim what you thought was gone. Why the idea of holding back isn't strength, and how it may quietly sabotage your prostate and peace of mind. He thought he was being disciplined, that skipping pleasure would somehow keep him stronger. Like many men his age, Richard had read somewhere that retaining semen could boost energy, preserve testosterone, or even increase mental clarity. It sounded empowering. But over time, something strange started to happen. He felt sluggish. His mood darkened. Nights became restless, and tension built up inside him without release. What he thought was helping him might have been quietly draining him. The myth of semen retention is seductive, especially for older men searching for renewed vigor. But science paints a different picture. Retaining semen for long periods doesn't supercharge masculinity. In fact, it can backfire. When the prostate remains stagnant, it may cause discomfort, swelling, or a feeling of congestion. Just like a muscle unused, this vital part of the male body needs flow, not stagnation. The body isn't designed to store energy in this way indefinitely. It's meant to move, cycle, and release. Beyond the physical, there's the emotional toll. Avoiding ejaculation, especially for reasons rooted in shame or fear of weakness, often leads to suppressed tension. Over time, this internal pressure doesn't build strength, it builds frustration. And that frustration can spill over into daily life, irritability, disconnection, and a subtle but persistent sense of unease. It's like trying to hold back the tide with your hands. Eventually, something breaks. There's also the issue of sleep and stress hormones. Gentle, intentional pleasure, including climax, releases oxytocin and prolactin, calming the nervous system and supporting better rest. Regular release has been shown to help with stress relief, mood balance, and even lower blood pressure in older adults. By avoiding this, many men are unknowingly missing out on nature's most accessible form of self-care. It's not about frequency or chasing teenage patterns. It's about honoring your biology at this stage of life. The silent price of believing. In retention, myths can be far greater than most men realize. It's not just physical discomfort, it's the gradual erosion of emotional balance and internal peace. So the real question is, are you avoiding pleasure because of a belief or because of fear? And if that belief is costing your health and happiness, is it still worth holding on to? When your brain gets too used to one pattern, your body forgets how to feel anything different, even with someone you love. Frank had a routine. Same chair, same time, same way. It had become so automatic that he barely thought about it. He didn't do it out of passion or curiosity. It was habit, plain and simple. And at 67, he didn't see any harm in it. But over the years, something changed. When he finally found himself in an intimate moment with someone, his body didn't respond the way it used to. He felt numb, detached, as if his own body had forgotten how to feel. This isn't rare. Many men over 60 unintentionally train their nervous system to respond only to one specific type of stimulation. Same hand, same rhythm, same pressure. Over time, the brain builds strong neural pathways around that singular experience. It becomes the only way the body knows how to reach pleasure. And when real-life intimacy enters the picture, with its unpredictability and emotional layers, it feels foreign, even frustrating. The problem isn't the act itself, it's the lack of variety. Just like muscles weaken when only one motion is repeated, the sensory system becomes limited when we don't challenge it. Think of it like eating the same bland meal every day. Eventually, your palate dulls. You stop tasting the richness of food. The same happens with physical pleasure. The narrower the experience, the duller it becomes over time. The good news is that the brain remains flexible, even in older age. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity, and it means you can retrain your mind and body to experience pleasure in new, more fulfilling ways. But first, you have to break the loop, change the environment, slow things down, switch hands. Explore different forms of touch. Focus less on the end result and more on the journey. These changes signal to your brain, pay attention, something new is happening here. This shift doesn't just improve physical sensitivity, it also restores emotional depth. When you move beyond routine, you begin reconnecting with your body, not as a machine, but as a living, feeling part of who you are. It stops being about release and starts being about presence. So ask yourself, are you truly enjoying the experience or just going through motions you learned decades ago? Because sometimes the cost of routine isn't boredom. It's the slow fading of connection, both with yourself and with others. And reclaiming that starts with one simple decision: to do something, anything, differently. A lifetime of pressure to finish quickly turns into a habit, one that robs older men of the deeper rewards of slowing down. It always had to be fast. Even in his younger years, James learned that intimacy was something to rush. Sneak it in, get it over with. Whether it was fear of being caught, embarrassment, or just the culture he grew up in, slowing down was never part of the picture. So now, at 68, even alone, his body still moved with urgency. Quick, tense, mechanical. But afterward, emptiness. No peace, no release really. Just a sense that something important had been skipped. This pattern isn't just emotional, it's biological. Fast, goal-oriented stimulation puts the nervous system into a mild state of stress. The body treats it as another task, not a source of calm. Blood pressure rises, breathing shortens, the muscles stay tense, and the hormones that usually promote relaxation and connection, like oxytocin, barely get released. What's meant to soothe the mind ends up reinforcing anxiety instead. For older men, this habit becomes even more damaging. As testosterone naturally declines and sensitivity shifts, the body craves more time and intention to reach the same levels of pleasure. But if the act remains rushed, many men begin to feel broken, when in truth, they're just out of rhythm with what their body now needs. It's not dysfunction, it's misalignment. There's also a loss of ritual. Slowness invites presence. It turns a physical act into something mindful and grounding. It gives room for breath, awareness, and subtle sensations that go unnoticed in haste. For men over 60, this isn't just a luxury, it's essential. Slowing down can reignite sensitivity, support blood flow, and reconnect the mind and body in ways that feel deeply healing. So how do you shift? It starts small. Set aside time without rushing. Focus on breath. Feel each part of the body, not just the goal. Let go of performance. Let it be about feeling, not finishing. The slower the pace, the deeper the experience. It's not about lasting longer for someone else. It's about being fully there for yourself. And here's the truth, most men never. Here, pleasure after 60 can be richer, fuller, and more satisfying than ever before, if you stop racing through it. Because when you give your body time, it gives back. The question is, will you slow down enough to notice what you've been missing all along? Focus only on the genitals, and the rest of your body goes silent. Reducing blood flow, sensation, and full body pleasure, Robert had always believed pleasure came from one place. One target, one routine, touch here, wait for the response, and be done. It worked for decades, or so he thought, but now in his early 70s things felt incomplete. He reached the end, technically, but the spark? Gone. What he didn't realize was that his body, once vibrant and responsive, had grown quiet from neglect, not disease, not age, just lack of attention. Here's the truth. The human body is wired for full-spectrum sensation. Skin is the body's largest organ, with thousands of nerve endings spread far beyond the obvious zones. The chest, thighs, belly, neck, they all hold untapped potential for connection and pleasure, but most men over 60 have never been taught to explore these areas. Years of narrow focus on the genitals trains the brain to ignore everything else. And in doing so, sensitivity in those forgotten areas slowly fades. The impact isn't just emotional, it's circulatory. When only one small region is activated, blood flow remains limited. But when you include more of your body, gentle touch on the abdomen, circular motion on the chest, light pressure on the inner thighs, it boosts circulation, oxygen delivery, and even stimulates nerve regeneration over time. It turns a small, local experience into a full-body event. And for older men whose circulation naturally decreases, this makes a significant difference. There's also a psychological shift. When you touch your body with curiosity and respect, rather than rushing to a result, it builds trust with yourself. It signals that your entire being is worth attention, not just a single part, that you're still alive, still capable, still deserving of pleasure that doesn't feel like a transaction. This mindset matters deeply after 60, when many men begin to feel invisible, even to themselves. So here's the invitation: slow down and scan, explore. Use your hands like you've never used them before. Let your body surprise you. And remember, this isn't about being good at it. There's no score. It's about returning to your senses, all of them, and realizing that there's a whole world beyond what you've always done. Because sometimes the greatest intimacy comes from areas we stopped noticing long ago. And once you remember how to listen to your entire body, the next question becomes, what else have you been ignoring that's quietly affecting how you feel? Skin changes. Sensitivity changes. But most men forget one simple thing that could turn discomfort into relief. Gerald winced without realizing it. Every time he touched himself, there was a sharpness, a subtle sting that never used to be there. He chalked it up to age. Maybe this was just how things felt now. But the discomfort grew. What he didn't see was that the issue wasn't his age. It was dryness. His skin had changed, but his habits hadn't. And that one overlooked detail was quietly stealing his comfort and his confidence. After 60, the skin naturally loses moisture. Testosterone dips, blood flow slows, and the body produces less natural lubrication. What once felt smooth and effortless can now feel rough, irritated, even painful. But many men never think to adjust. They continue with old routines, assuming the discomfort is part of getting older. It's not. It's a sign the body needs a little extra care, and ignoring it leads to more than just awkward sensations. Dry friction creates micro tears in the skin. These small abrasions may not bleed, but they create inflammation, irritation, and long-term desensitization. In simpler terms, it hurts, and it gets worse over time. And beyond physical effects, it chips away at the emotional experience. When pleasure becomes uncomfortable, many men begin to avoid it altogether, not because they've lost interest, but because their bodies start to associate it with pain. The solution is so simple, it's often dismissed: lubrication. But not just any kind. For men over 60, water-based lubes often dry too quickly. Oil-based options last longer but can be messy. The ideal is something skin-safe, gentle, and tailored to aging skin, ideally with nourishing ingredients like aloe, vitamin E, or coconut oil. Used properly, it transforms the experience, not just physically, but emotionally. What was once a chore becomes soothing. What was painful becomes pleasurable again. There's a quiet dignity in honoring your body's evolving needs. Just as you wouldn't walk miles in shoes that hurt, you shouldn't accept discomfort in moments meant to bring comfort. Adapting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And small shifts, like proper lubrication, carry powerful results: better blood flow, restored sensitivity, and a renewed sense of control. So ask yourself, are you forcing your body through something? It's quietly begging you to soften, because pleasure doesn't have to be sharp, not at this age, not ever. And when friction fades, what's left is a smoother path to connection with your body and with your sense of self. The silent guilt from old teachings keeps men locked in a cycle of tension where pleasure becomes punishment. As a boy, Thomas was told never to touch himself. His father called it dirty. His church called it sinful. And even though he's now 73, a grown man with decades of life experience, those voices never really left. Each time he reached for himself, something tightened in his chest. Not physically, emotionally, a heaviness, a whisper of guilt. As if he was doing something wrong, even in private. That quiet shame had followed him into old age, and he didn't even know how deeply it was shaping his life. Shame around self-pleasure is one of the most stubborn emotional blocks men carry, especially those raised in strict or conservative environments. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up as tension in the body, avoidance, emotional numbness, a deep discomfort with receiving pleasure. Even when no one's watching, the judgment lives inside, and it sabotages the very thing men over 60 need most: self-connection, release, and peace. The truth is, shame and pleasure can't coexist. When guilt clouds the experience, the body holds back. Muscles tighten, breathing shortens. The nervous system shifts into defense mode. This not only reduces sensitivity, it trains the body to associate intimacy with stress. Over time, even acts of self-care feel like acts of self-harm. And yet, most men never stop to question where that guilt came from, or whether it still serves them. Let's be clear, masturbation isn't dirty, selfish, or something to outgrow. It's a natural function, one with real health benefits, especially in later life. It supports circulation, hormone balance, prostate health, and emotional well-being. But more than that, it's a statement: my body still matters. And every time a man gives himself permission to feel without judgment, he takes back a little piece of power that shame tried to steal. Breaking free starts with compassion, not pushing the shame away, but noticing it gently, asking, whose voice is that? And then choosing your own. It may take time, it may feel awkward, but every step towards self-acceptance softens the grip of the past. And as that grip loosens, pleasure becomes what it was always meant to be, not punishment but presence. So here's the question: what if the thing you've been ashamed of is actually one of the most healing tools you have left? And what would happen if, just once, you allowed yourself to feel without apology? Why smart men over 60 are using discreet tools made for them, and how these choices bring back control, sensitivity, and ease. Eugene never thought he'd use a device. He came from a generation where tools for pleasure were seen as desperate or silly. That stuff's for younger guys, he'd say, or worse, that means something's wrong with me. But at 74, things had changed. His grip wasn't what it used to be, his focus slipped, and sometimes it just didn't work the way it used to. Then, one quiet evening, curiosity won. He tried a simple, age-friendly massager, and for the first time in years, he felt alive. Here's the truth: tools made for older men aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of wisdom. They recognize that the body changes, and instead of fighting those changes, they support them. There are ergonomic stimulators that compensate for hand fatigue, devices that enhance blood flow without aggression, lubes designed specifically for mature skin, even small warming pads that increase circulation before touch. These aren't gimmicks. They're part of a toolkit for pleasure, health, and dignity. Unfortunately, many men avoid them out of pride or shame. The idea of needing help feels like admitting defeat. But it's not defeat. It's adaptation. No one shames a man for using reading glasses, or hearing aids, or a cane. The same should be true for tools that support intimacy. Because just like those other aids, these can restore access to something deeply human: the ability to feel, connect, and enjoy your own body again. There's also the psychological benefit. Using a well-made, respectful device creates a shift in mindset, from struggle to exploration, from frustration to ease, from doubt to confidence. And that confidence spills over into other areas of life: posture, mood, even how a man relates to his partner or himself. The decision to use a tool isn't about fixing something broken. It's about choosing ease over struggle. So what's holding most men back? Fear of judgment, embarrassment, old stories about what it means to be a real man. The reality is this: a real man adapts. A real man honors his changing body and uses what helps. And when you release the shame and embrace the support, everything gets easier, more connected, more pleasurable, and more aligned with who you are now, not who you used to be. Because in the end, the strongest men aren't the ones who suffer in silence. They're the ones who learn, adapt, and choose joy without apology. The price for doing it wrong isn't just physical, it's emotional. But the body can relearn, the spark can return. At first, it was just less sensation. Then, it was the lack of desire. Eventually, Harold, a quiet 69-year-old widower, stopped trying altogether. Not because he didn't want to feel pleasure, but because he no longer believed he could. Over time, without even realizing it, he slipped into a silent kind of grief. The kind where a man doesn't mourn loudly, he just withdraws from his body, from joy, from life. And all because of a series of small habits he never thought twice about. The truth is, masturbation mistakes after 60 aren't just about missed pleasure. They add up. Slowly, they affect circulation, hormones, sleep, mood, and most painfully, they affect a man's sense of identity. Because when the body stops responding, many begin to feel invisible, like their vitality, their masculinity, their spark has faded for good. But what if that's not the end? What if it's a warning, sign, and an invitation to begin again? Science says the body remains adaptable well into our later years. Nerves can regenerate, blood vessels can be reawakened, sensitivity can return. But it takes intention. It takes letting go of pride, myths, guilt, and the autopilot routines that brought you here. And most importantly, it takes belief that your body is still worthy of care, connection, and curiosity. This isn't about chasing youth. It's about honoring the man you are now, maybe slower, maybe wiser, but still deeply capable of experiencing intimacy, relief, and joy. When you address the mistakes, whether it's friction, shame, repetition, or speed, you open the door to something richer, a renewed relationship with your body, one rooted not in performance, but presence. And as Harold began to change his habits, softer touch, deeper breath, new tools, more time, something subtle shifted. He felt warmth again, not just in his skin, but in his spirit. A quiet sense that he hadn't reached the end of this part of himself, not yet, and neither have you. So the real question is, are you willing to reclaim what you quietly gave up? Because the fix isn't just physical, it's personal, it's emotional. And it begins with one simple truth. You are not too old to feel. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment. Let us know your age or where you're watching from. Subscribe for more honest, empowering health stories made just for you. And remember, you're not broken. You're becoming wiser,